This podcast contains content that is graphic in nature and mature language that may be unsuitable for children or young listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Around 1 a.m. on December 15th, 2018, police got a call about shots being fired in a local nightclub in Jonesville, Louisiana, and upon arriving at the scene, found one 23-year-old male dead on the floor and another 23-year-old male in the wind. Come with us into the story of a senseless crime for a senseless reason and the use of an amazing nonprofit program to finally find and arrest the suspect on this episode of Senseless. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Senseless. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Kyler.
And have I got a story for you today? Although this one didn't take long to solve as in terms of who did it or catching the suspect, it also wasn't really hard to figure out why, but the reason why is so incredibly vain that it's hard to believe that this crime occurred at all. Are you ready for this?
Probably not.
Okay, I'm done.
But I know you're not.
Alright, so on December 15th in 2018, DaJohn LaMichael Mitchell of Clayton, Louisiana, which is just north of Faraday, along with some of his friends, they decided to go to a Christmas party at the Suga Shak in Jonesville, which
Suga Shak.
It's spelled S-U-G-A-S-H-A-K.
I know, you're just trying to pronounce it too hard.
I am, because
It's just a Suga Shack.
I enunciate. So, they were going to this party, and this party was reported to have, and it had been advertised as having an awesome DJ as well as a well-known rapper from the area, and that made everybody that much more excited for this event. It was also put out on social media that there were going to be drinks, and it was just going to be an all-around good party. What did you say?
Nothing.
Uh-huh.
I was just singing a song wrong.
Oh, not unusual. So, DaJohn and some of his friends went ahead and cruised over to the Suga Shack that was in Jonesville.
Better.
To attend. Thank you. I'm doing my best. To attend this party. And according to friends and witnesses, as soon as DaJohn got there, I could have to do better at enunciating that. DaJohn. It's D-A' John.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm having to and it's,
yeah, I know. I thought you were doing a D-E and just pronouncing it duh, no. Like a lot of the white peoples do.
Well, I'm the whitest of white people.
I know, that's why I thought that.
Okay, so according to friends and witnesses, as soon as DaJohn got on the scene, he started enjoying himself, as one would. He was drinking, listening to the music. Some even say that he was actually in the DJ booth playing the music, the usual. And before long, people started getting more tipsy and started dancing and, getting into it. Now, this party, like I mentioned earlier, was going to have a rapper there, and this rapper was known by the name Youngin Gunnin. His real name was Jordan Johnson, and he had hyped up this event on his social media. I believe it was like Instagram and Facebook, and had done a lot of videos like Jonesville's gonna be hopping and all of this. And
we gonna get it hopping.
We gonna get it hopping. So, Youngin Gunnin and his crew were there, and he was performing throughout the night. And he had actually hired and paid a promoter to film his performance and interactions at everybody calls it a nightclub. It's literally just a shack, but at the Suga Shack that evening. And so while he was there and doing his performance and just hanging out, the filmer was following them around, and it came to pass that Youngin Gunnin and DaJohn ended up crossing paths later that evening. And because DaJohn had been drinking and was just dancing and feeling himself, he saw the camera and he made his way to be able to get over in front of the camera and to get into the frame. He was dancing, like I said, having a good time, and eventually he kind of bumped into one of, it's hard to tell from the video, and the video that I'm mentioning I actually saw on a segment of a show on Investigation Discovery. It's called Real Time Crime, and it was season 1, episode 4, Tailgate Terror /Rap Sheet. And the part of the episode is the second part, the rap sheet part, that covers this story. And they have multiple videos from that night that were from different cell phones, as well as the promoter video. And so if you want to check that out, that's a really good resource to see those if you want to check out those videos. You can see on these videos that he's obviously having a good time. Maybe a little rambunctious, but otherwise just good fun. He dances in front of the camera frame, and you can actually see him bump into someone and then just kind of roll off and keep dancing. And
as one would do at the club,
right?
Because it happens.
You're just you're dancing, having a good time. You bump into somebody, no big deal. You just keep doing what you're doing. Everybody's having a good time.
Exactly. Hit me on the shoulder. That's fine. Just don't step on my shoes.
And that's a big deal for women and for men when they go to the club. You don't step on my shoes. Don't spill any kind of drink on my shirt or my dress.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck about that.
Well, some people do, especially if they're wearing silk.
No. If silk is one thing, white is another thing.
Yeah.
But like any other instance, I really don't care.
Okay, so, and that's understandable, as most humans would. That's how we would react. Just keep on vibing, having a good time.
Now, you do it on purpose, that's another story.
Absolutely agree. And you can see again, DaJohn still trying to keep himself in front of the camera, just kind of goofing off, and he bumps into a person again. But instead of, a normal human reaction of, either stepping out of the way or just kind of moving around, moving on, this time, the dude he bumped into comes out swinging. And what happens when you have a small area with people drinking and dancing and then a punch gets thrown?
A lot of punches get thrown.
A lot of punches get thrown, exactly.
You can turn a rap concert into a heavy metal concert in just one snap.
Yep. Go from zero
to mosh pit.
to mosh pit in 0.3 seconds flat, right? So the only difference in this story is that someone brings out a gun in a fist fight. According to court records, DaJohn was shot at least 5 times, possibly 6. Most on the back leftmost side of his body, and according...
What do you mean possibly?
Because there's, and I'll explain this more later, but there's one that they don't know for sure if it was just shrapnel from another bullet or not. He was shot at least 5 times, possibly 6, with a .380 pistol. The autopsy noted that some of the wounds could have been caused by fragments from the other bullet or another gunshot itself, but it was unable to be definitively determined. And all shots were noted to have a trajectory of back to front, meaning that all 5 times, and possibly 6, he was shot in the back. Of course, once the shots rang out, everyone scatters and runs out of the building. Just like turning on a light switch and all of the...
Cockroaches with the light.
There you go.
Didn't we determine recently that .380 was the same as a 9mm?
They can be used in the same weapons, yes. The friends that had come to this party with DaJohn soon realized that he had not exited the building with them, and I believe it was his cousin, who I think is also on the ID episode. He ran back to see where he was and saw him laying on the floor, quote, unconscious and unmoving, unquote.
Ruh-roh.
Yeah. When the police arrive on the scene, they find a group of partygoers outside, huddled around in different groups, and upon entering the Suga Shack, they found DaJohn lying face down with the gunshot wounds, and they also found spent casings of the Winchester brand .380 caliber, but otherwise they didn't find any other leads. There was just the bullet casings. To make this whole thing a little bit more heart-wrenching, DaJohn's father was a lieutenant with the Concordia Parish Sheriff's Office at the time, and he heard about the shooting and took his patrol car running lights and sirens to the scene, only to find out that his firstborn son had been shot to death. In the ID episode, it just hits so hard and your heart breaks for him, and in more than one way throughout the episode, but I'm not going to say any more about that. If you want to see it, go watch it. Real-Time Crime, episode 4, season 1. Now,
it's sad that you know that offhand. That's not in any notes, folks. That's just out of the archives of her brain.
So now, while talking to and interviewing witnesses, it was tough going because despite the crowd of potential witnesses, most people did not want to get involved, and many more claimed they saw nothing.
Absolutely. Somebody just got shot for bumping into somebody. You say something about him, you're going to get shot too.
And even more so, this was due, the investigators believed in part to the fact that the rapper and his crew were purportedly involved with a part of a Mississippi gang known as 500 Navy or 500 Navy Babies. I'm not sure.
Yes, the 500 Street. God damn it.
It's weird. 500 Navy Baby's Street Gang. Is that what we figured out? Okay.
I keep wanting to say 500 Street or
500 Navy
500 Street. Yeah.
So
and all of those are wrong.
Anyway, so that they think that was part of the reason why nobody wanted to talk. They were scared of retaliation, and eventually what witnesses they did get to talk mostly requested that their names not be used, and they didn't testify at the trial. However, they did eventually get some identifying descriptions of the clothes he was wearing, and apparently he had on a bright red NASA shirt. So it was like a bright red shirt with NASA in big letters across the front, and some jogging or wind pants that had 2 red stripes down the side of the pants. And this person had been spotted with a gun, and the name of the rapper, Young and Gunnin, and Jordan Johnson.
And apparently their entire group was dressed in red.
I believe it, especially if they were considered to be part of that game, which would make sense.
Which is interesting to me, because I would have assumed that the 500 Navy Baby gang would have been associated with the Crips, seeing as how Navy
right?
is a hue of blue.
Right, it didn't make any
red,
sense to me either.
All I can think is that it's to do with the B, the Navy Baby for the blood.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know how gangs work. I've never been in one.
Well, you essentially can't say a K or a S.
Right. That would make sense. I don't know how any of that works, but that makes sense. So they get the name of him being Jordan Johnson, who was supposed to perform, and that he arrived with his entourage that were all dressed in red, according to the news reports. And the officers quickly get an arrest warrant for him as the prime suspect in the shooting and begin the search for his location. While doing this, the Catahoula Parish Sheriff's Office, which was the main sheriff's office that was handling the case, was talking to another entity that works out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, called Project NOLA. Project NOLA is a non-profit organization that we're going to talk more in detail about here in just a second. But they basically use live camera feeds from all over to be able to help locate wanted suspects, among other things. And the sheriff's office, using social media and Jordan Johnson's own photos posted, they were able to get the make and model of the vehicle they had been in, as well as a license plate number. And using that the license plate readers on the Natchez-Vidalia Bridge that crosses the Mississippi River, they were able to see that that car with those plates had crossed the Mississippi River. And about the same time, they actually got a phone call from the Merritt Hospital in Natchez, I believe, that had another shooting victim.
Yeah, it was Krayshawn Malone. It just says at a Natchez hospital. Had sought treatment there because he had also been shot in the altercation, and he had told personnel there that he was shot in Jonesville.
His wounds were non-life-threatening. I think he just got shot in the leg. I think if I remember.
It doesn't say that they were anything serious.
I think it was in a different news article. But yeah, so there was a couple different leads that told the officers at that point the information that they got from the license plate readers and from the witness at the hospital that Jordan Johnson was likely in Natchez. The investigators knew that they would now have to involve Adams County in the search for Jordan Johnson, and upon contacting that police force, they realized that Jordan Johnson was currently on probation and parole for a 2014 incident where he pled guilty to 3 counts of aggravated assault.
Because he took out a gun and shot into a full vehicle.
At least three people got injured out of that incident. There were 3 or more in the vehicle, but 3 of them were actually shot. And at that point, he was actually only
one. Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was 1 bullet wounded 3 people.
Yeah.
And he was only 18 when that happened in 2014.
19, yeah. That makes sense.
He said he was sentenced to 10 years, 5 years suspended.
But he had literally just got out on probation.
Yeah,
a couple months before.
In 2018 in June, 6 months before this incident.
Yeah.
In December.
So knowing that he was on probation, they went ahead and contacted his parole officer and got Jordan's cell phone number, which they then used to pinpoint his location using the GPS tracking on his phone. And they relayed this information back to Project NOLA. So they actually were able to ping his phone And it just so happened that Project NOLA had access to the cameras covering the entirety of the complex where his location was showing at the Holiday Apartments in Natchez. Now...
Sorry.
Okay.
It's a way backtrack, but I thought I'd read this, and I just couldn't remember where it was. This one says that this happened while he was performing.
I don't know that.
Because on the back it says that who allegedly bumped into him and then a fight broke out.
Right.
But like, it just says that
I think
a rapper
because
who while performing shot Mitchell and then stood over him and shot him some more. Maybe
Yeah.
it just means that during
night.
during his stay there at the venue while he was
Right.
performing.
Yeah. I think that's more of a generalized. But
That sentence. I remember reading it the other day, and it just struck me as, damn.
No,
In the middle of a song, he just pulls out a gun.
And you can see on the video that it wasn't a quote unquote performance. The promoter or filming the guy who was filming everything, you could tell by the situation in the videos that he wasn't like on stage, or it wasn't like a shot of him doing rapping. Like I don't even think I saw a mic or anything on those videos. I could be wrong, but.
Well, if it's just a sugar shack and it's
Exactly.
only so big, you don't really need a stage or a mic or a...
Well, I mean, at least like a circle around them or something, you would think. I don't know how these things work. So...
If there's going to be a circle, then the people rapping are still in the circle? Because it's a back and forth.
The only thing I know about rapping underground is like 8 Mile, so don't...
Just don't.
Don't be judgy. So when Project NOLA monitored the live streams, which is another part of what they can do there, they happened upon the vehicle that matched the description, and it came into the frame, and they watched as people exited the car, and all of this was live. And they watched them as they went into an apartment, so they knew from the video that they were watching, they could see the vehicle, they could see them exit, and they knew exactly which apartment they went to, and they relayed this information back to Adams County and Catahoula Parish and Concordia Parish. Adams County is the county right across the bridge.
Okay.
In Mississippi.
I just know that it was the PSO. I'm not sure which.
Well, at this point, they had multiple agencies. They had Adams County, they had Concordia Parish, they had Catahoula Parish, because
Does the P just stand for fucking parish?
Yes.
God damn it.
Yeah. So...
I thought that was going to be some specific...
No.
Damn them.
Well, after they figured out which apartment that he was in, or what the suspected alleged apartment, they then focused their attention on watching who came and went out of this place. And after watching for a while, they were actually to visually confirm that Jordan Johnson was indeed one of the people in this apartment. So then things upgrade to warp speed. Everybody's moving, everybody's getting everything mobilized. They get the special task force team, they get Adams County SWAT, they get ready to roll on this location. And as they're on their way, the sergeant...
If you know anything about cops, when they're ready, they're ready.
Right.
They may take a little while to get ready, but when they're ready, there ain't no stopping them.
And as they're on their way, the sergeant of the SWAT team is watching the feed live on his phone outside of this apartment building.
That's fancy as
and
hell.
that is all thanks to Project NOLA. Project NOLA is the one who has access, and they can straight send it to the police force, their phone, so they can actually watch the live feed as they're on their way to go do this arrest.
Well, is it that they send it to them, or is it that the police force has rented out or has bought these cameras or the use of these cameras for however long, and that they're able to use it because they have it?
That I can't answer for sure, but what I know about the Project NOLA itself is I know that for public and privacy, they only keep recordings for so long, and they only allow police forces to use them once they request it.
Right. So, police may be able to buy their cameras for their own personal
monitoring,
use,
yes.
for their own personal use, but only specific cameras.
Only
and
specific
the Project
cameras
NOLA
at
has
time.
access to all of
That's
them.
exactly correct.
Got it.
Because they don't want the public's rights infringed on, but at the same time, the monitoring system is always there if they need it. Yes, absolutely. They're trying to watch and make sure that there aren't any like children around, because this is an apartment complex. So they're trying to pay attention to the surrounding areas, and they actually notice as they're on their way, they see Jordan Johnson and a male accomplice coming out of the apartment and getting into the car. However, he doesn't make it...
comma space.
comma space. However, he doesn't even make it off of the same street that the apartment's on before they arrive. And
that's the benefit or the drawback, of having live camera feed.
That's exactly right. And, I mean, there wouldn't have been much they could do about it otherwise, but if he had got off the street, they would have been able to at least see which direction he went. But that didn't matter, because they got there, they arrested him, and took him into custody without incident. And
Which is shocking to me.
Well,
honestly. I mean, like, granted, what's he gonna do? But still, there's enough of them that'll try just about anything. So it's just good for the police force.
Absolutely,
And,
it's so much safer for the community and everybody. Yeah, and it's nice when that happens. It's not always the case, but it is nice, just for the safety of our officers and for the safety of the people involved. He may be a murderer, but
with the I mean, screw him, and it's far safer for the community as a whole.
Absolutely.
And it's just I was gratified to hear that,
no incidents or resistance.
A suspected or alleged gang member and a known violent, known to have a temper, didn't have any delusions of fighting it out with the police and I don't know, either winning or dying.
Right. So
how many times do you win?
Right. Well, because you can only there's only the two options. You either win or you die.
Yeah, but how many times have you heard about him? Well, I mean, you wouldn't hear about him anyways. They would suppress the hell out of that.
Probably. Anyway, so they got him into custody. No incident, no resistance, and that was on December 15th at 12:40. So from the time they got the call to the time he was arrested was about 10 hours, because he was arrested at 12:40 on December 15th. So he was taken to the Catahoula Parish Jail, where he was booked on one count of second-degree murder and a felon in possession of a firearm, and he was held without bond until his trial. From the time of his arrest, Jordan Johnson refused to talk and insisted he was innocent throughout his trial, but he was eventually found guilty on both second-degree murder and possession of a firearm in 2021. Yeah. He was sentenced to life plus 20 years for the firearm charge.
Incidentally, when he was, the jury made its verdict on December 16th of 2021. So just a day later, 3 years later.
So 3 years and a day, yeah. And at this point in time, I know he's still incarcerated and going through his appeal process and has some court dates scheduled for that pending this year. But as it stands, he is still in jail and will be pending an appellate win at some point in the future, but there's no way of knowing for sure which way that'll go. So, unless he's got some kind of substantial evidence. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure most of the time with any kind of appeal, they stick with what the jury decides, because that's what they're for. So,
yeah, unless Project Innocence comes in and starts helping or something.
I highly, highly doubt that one.
I do as well, but they've taken on some things that a lot of people have highly, highly doubted.
I mean,
and
you never know.
And they've kicked ass.
And all people are found, but I mean, he's already been found guilty, so we don't even need to say that. And on a more serious note, I just want to take a moment to remember the victim here, as they so often get lost in these retelling of what is really their stories. And according to an article written by the Cinemaholic, who wrote an article just after the release of the investigation discovery show I mentioned, DaJohn was described as kind-hearted and down-to-earth, who loved enjoying life and going out with his friends. He was known to be quite helpful and had no trouble making friends and had big plans for his future. I think in the episode, his father said he wanted to one day play in the NBA, but according to a couple different places, football was his passion. And in high school, he received all-district in both football and basketball, and he also ran track.
Damn.
Yeah, he also left behind a son, Aiden, who was 4 at the time his daddy was taken from him, an entire family and multitudinous friends that love him and miss him dearly. He was only 23 years old at the time of his senseless murder that should have never happened. Not over something as frivolous as
bumping into someone.
Are you kidding?
This article said that it may not have even been Johnson that
actually bumped into him. It was a member of his crew or whatever that bumped into it. It's something so ridiculous.
That DaJohn, who was dancing, allegedly bumped into Johnson, or a member of his entourage, that Johnson took offense.
Yeah, and what?
What? And then Johnson pushed Mitchell, fight broke out, and at some point Johnson pulled out his .380 and shot him in the back. When he dropped to the floor, and he shot him 4 more times in the back.
Yeah. And I believe
which is ridiculous.
In the court records, the autopsy stated something about the trajectories, and there were
There were 7 casings found.
Well, I mean, I'm just the wounds themselves, the trajectories of the wounds prove that he was on the floor, and the trajectory.
And that's what everything I've read says as well.
It's crazy.
He shot him once to knock him down, and 4 more times at least.
And for me, this episode, I don't really have a lot of personal opinion other than
what the fuck?
Like what. The biggest part of this case and the interest for me in this case was I was completely and hopelessly fascinated by Project NOLA and what they did in this case and the technology that they use and have in place currently and what that means for law enforcement all over the country, not just Louisiana. It's just astounding. And just to give a little bit more in detail information about Project NOLA, it is a nonprofit organization that operates the largest, most cost-efficient, and successful networked HD crime camera program in America.
Actually, on that, for reference, the cameras that Project NOLA is using, their resolution is 32. I'm assuming frames per second, but I don't recall what it said after 32. But the pole cameras that police used to use, that a lot of cities still use, is 2.
Yeah, so that's a lot.
Yeah.
My goodness.
It's
I didn't realize that.
16-fold difference.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And that's just in resolution. The cost efficiency is absolutely ridiculous. And
they have so many more perks and like things that come out of it.
Well, not necessarily. A lot of the things that their cameras can do are things that the pole cameras can also do, but they can do it for considerably cheaper and in better quality, and so they can be more widespread and have more coverage because they are less costly.
Yeah, and they can go via the internet and transmit video in real time.
And that's one of the coolest things, both the real time and the fact that the pole cameras, there's no way to watch the feed through a mobile phone.
Right, you can't.
On the Project NOLA cameras, you can watch it over an app on your phone.
Right, and you can,
which I think is really cool,
rebroadcast them to local law enforcement immediately. It's all real time, which is really impressive. And that series that I was talking about on Investigation Discovery is all of those episodes are based off of, that's why the series is called Real Time Crime, because the Project NOLA Real Time Crime Information Center at the University of New Orleans is where all of this takes place, and it was created in 2009 by criminologist Brian Lagarde. And if you want, or if you're curious to know more information about Project NOLA and their role in communities everywhere, you can go to projectnola.org, and we'll have that link listed in our show notes and links to the other sources used in researching this case. And
that this is not the only case that we are going to talk about on this sin law that happens to be also a case that happens to also be a case that was picked up by or helped with by
that the case was solved in part by the help of the Project NOLA.
That one.
Okay.
That one.
Okay. And he's absolutely right, because there are many cases that I've come across in researching others that have had Project NOLA influence in one way or the other, whether it be license plate recognition or facial recognition, which is another part of what they do. They also have a really, really cool gunshot detection system. And like I said, they've got all the information on their website. You guys should check it out. It's really amazing.
Oh, you're not even going to give them a couple of the details?
I'm not, because we have another episode that we're going to use it. So if
you better say something.
Go listen to our other episodes.
Oh. She's trying to hook y'all in. Root?
And I just want to say thank you for listening. If you like the show, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or whichever platform you're listening on. And if you have any questions or just want to let us know what you think, send us an email at sinlawpodcast@gmail.com, which will also be listed in the show notes below.
See you next week.
See you next week. Or the week after. Every 2 weeks.
I'll see you when I see you.
Whatever it is. Take care out there.
You'll be back.
This has been an elfaudio production.